Woo! It's showtime at the Apollo. It's showtime. I wonder if I get what is it, the copyright strikes for that. I just saying. I feel like I shouldn't though, because A, it was very off key, and B, no one's watching this that watches the Apollo. Is the Apollo even on anymore? I used to watch this stuff every Saturday. All right, so welcome. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. This is The Right Mindset. And as always, Saturdays and Sundays, we do live videos as such, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's give a huge hello to Flowers while she eats her chicken tikaka masala oh wait, syllables, masala. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, I'm grateful you every week you show up, and if you weren't here, I'd have one less person, and I'd be sad. I'd be very sad. I just think that should be masala, takaka, takaka masala. Is that what it is? Takaka? I don't know. Takaka masala. Oh, tikka masala. Tikka masala. All right. Excellent. Yeah, it was terrible. I tell you. So today we are. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm here to impress. So while we wait for a few more people to come in, let's just give the little rundown of what we're going to be doing today. It will be all about what is a narrative. That's what we're talking about today. What is a narrative? Hey, morning. What's up, Brian? Welcome to the show. Welcome. It's always a pleasure. Today is going to be about what is a narrative. Like I said, every Saturday and Sunday we do live videos. Saturdays are usually dedicated to some sort of educational element, unless, of course, it's a writing sprint. And every Sunday is dedicated to write a book with me from conception to completion. We get pretty far in that book, actually. I'm pretty excited about tomorrow, not only because it's my birthday, welcome, I'll be 47, but because we get to explore a new narrative that I don't touch except for on Sundays. So that's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be a few updates today as well when we get through it. Hey, Hannah, what's going on? I thought I wasn't going to make this video. I just got back from a doctor's appointment. Well, I hope the doctor's appointment went really well. I'm grateful that you're here, but obviously always your health will always come first. But still, much love. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. And as always, by the way, if you have questions while I'm doing the lesson, feel free to ask questions. If they are based on the lesson, that's better. But if not, I love to go on tangents, mostly because I don't shut up. And it's because I was taught, being, entertainment, and I did radio and all these other things. You can't have dead air. Dead air is the worst. Dead air sounds like something you might wear before a date, and you put some dead air on. But dead air, no one likes that. And it's money gone. You can't just have silence on the radio. I'm just saying. So I rimble and I ramble. But with that said, we got 4 people here, so let's do it. Let's get into it. Let's get into the magic of what it's going. I wrote a nice little something today, so I'm going to read. And as I read, I'm going to do a real-time example of what I go over, but I'm going to read first and talk about it, and then we will perform. And I will be the monkey and clown that everyone loves. My beard is mostly doing the work today. It's getting pretty thick. Oh, Stan. It's looking pretty good today. I didn't really brush it, so don't judge me. All right. Now, if you've been on the show before, if you watched me either on the pre-records, which are every Wednesday and Friday, and or you've watched the weekend lives, you know that I talk about narrative all the time on this channel. And if you've been watching, you know that I say it often. I say that a narrative is made up of both plot and story. Plot is what needs to happen no matter what, and story is how it unfolds through the emotional experience and choices of your characters. Oh, yeah. So today I'm going to go over what that even means and how it can help you approach your writing process in general. because I talk about it a lot and sometimes I show it a little bit. But today we're going to go over it. We're going to break down. We're going to break down what plot is, what story is, and how that makes a narrative, and ultimately what plot looks like on the page. And I'm not talking about outlining. I'm talking about what plot would look like without any character-driven story. And then we will also show the story unfold. But let's start with the plot. What needs to happen? Yeah. Plot is what's happening on the surface. It's the action, the events, the visible moments. Sarah meets Chris. That is plot. Sarah must meet Chris no matter what. So no matter what they do, no matter their choices, how they experience it, they have to, at some point in the narrative, meet one another. Simply put, Sarah meets Chris is plot. There's no emotional context, no depth. There's nothing interesting about it. We just know, hey, Sarah met Chris. But plot alone doesn't carry weight. It's not anything emotionally interesting. It's just things happening. And as you've heard me also say, things are happening, but nothing is happening, right? These are the things your narrative needs no matter what. Sarah must meet Chris at some point. It's just something that's going to happen. But plot alone can turn into a sequence of events where things are happening, but nothing is truly happening. Or rather, nothing is being earned, explored, processed, nor are there consequences. Yeah, sure. Sarah meets Chris. They fall in love. They live happily ever after. Done, right? Those are all plot points. And you could simply make it on the page. Sarah walked into a store and met Chris. There is no story there. That is just plot. You could say that they hung out a lot and fell in love. Again, that is just plot. And you could say, oh, they happily lived ever after. And that is just plot. So who wants to really read that? Not me. Nothing is happening. Everything is being told you, and the plot is a collection of empty things that happen. How do you fix that? Howdy, Ro. What's up? Hey, Nicole. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Salve, Nicole. So let's talk about story. Story. Oh, and a special hello to the beard. Oh, hello. How's it going? Matthew says hello. Story, how it unfolds. Story is where meaning enters, where things are truly happening. All right. I'm wondering if this is true or not. I've heard that if you publish several books, you officially become an author. The moment you write something and put it on the page, okay, you are you have authored work. Authored work does not have to be published. It just needs to be written. It's a collection of works, yes, but that collection starts with one. And if someone says, well, you're not an author until you're published, they are misleading you. The reality of the situation is if you look up the definition of author, it just means someone has a collection of, I'll do it right now, author. Author, a writer of a book, article, or report. However, it does not need to be published. All right. In legal discourse, an author is the creator of an original work that has been published, quote unquote, whether that work is written, graphic, or recorded medium. However, it's because you created the authorship that makes you an author. It's the act of actually creating the work. So, to be published, to be an author, right? So, no, you do not. So, yeah. So the publish aspect of it is not through a publisher. It's like you wrote it. So right. And people can see it. Well, you could have a collection of that. Let's see. The writer is someone who creates written content, but they aren't necessarily. All right. Yeah. So if you put if you write an article and you put it on, let's say, a blog or your website, if you write poems, if you put it on social media, that is a form of being an author because you are, quote unquote, publishing it. But the idea that you have to be published through a publisher to be an author is the inaccurate part of it all. What we got here? Bloop, 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 bloop. All right. So Continuing on. Story, how it unfolds. And as I said, the story is where the meaning enters, where things are truly happening. It's not the order of events, it's the character's lived experience of those plot points. Thank you so much for clearing it up. You are absolutely welcome, Hannah. I'm always happy to do what I can. So when you look at story, it is the character's lived experience. It's their choices through the experience of those plots. Their consequences from making choices, moving your plot around, but ultimately leading them to the plot point. So what does that mean? This is how you create the cause and effect. So yeah, Sarah meets Chris, but how does it affect her emotionally? What choices does she make in that situation to meet Chris or the response to meeting Chris? What changes inside her? Are there consequences to her meeting Chris? Sure, she needs to meet him, but you can create obstacles leading to her meeting Chris, and how she reacts to that creates the story. So Sarah might be shy or embarrassed, sure. You know she has to meet Chris, but now she's being evasive. Maybe she leaves after their first encounter, and now Chris chases after her, only to realize that she forgot her phone and Chris was returning it to her, and she ran off so quickly. That's why she lost her phone, right? Those are choices, emotional reactions to it. We're giving purpose and experience to the event. Sure, they still meet, but now there's conflict, there's reservation, there's shyness, but there's also resolve in they met. The plot happens, but it occurs and unfolds through Sarah's emotional response to it and Chris's choice to bring her the phone. A story has officially unfolded with Chris catching up to her. We feel Sarah's shyness. We feel her embarrassment. We feel, we've all been there before. A cute or a lovely person meets us and we're like, right? And we get shy, right? So we can connect to that. Story isn't just events, it's the emotional resonance, the subjective point of view, the decisions made in response to things happening. Story is where your character earns their arc, how they process things, how they react to things, and ultimately how it transforms them. This is talking about challenging positions, right? Because they change completely, somewhat, or not at all. And if they don't do it at all, boom, they double down. The feelings, the experiences, their choices, all of this drives the story to unfold through the plot of things happening. Which brings us to narrative. It all comes together. Narrative, and again, if anyone has questions about this, feel free to ask. Narrative is what the reader receives, the woven combination of plot and story. It's the bridge between what happens and what it means. Oh, let me sounds like the plot to Dumb and Dumber, except with the phone instead of a lock. I mean, there are only 7 stories you could tell, so it happens. So as I was saying, narrative is what basically it's the woven combination of plot and story. It's the bridge between what happens and how it unfolds through the characters, experiences, and choices, their emotionals. All right. And more than anything, it's shaped by intention. You, the author, get to choose what gets shown, what gets felt, and in what order. You're still in control of everything. I adore. Yeah, Dumb and Dumber is very funny. Second one, I don't know why they did that, but you want to hear the most annoying noise in the world? Okay, sorry. And this is the truth. Narrative, combining plot and story, becomes the craft of what being a writer is. Because being a writer is about making choices, believing in those choices, and moving the plot around those choices to allow the story to unfold through the emotional truths of the experiences and choices of your character. Plot alone will come off like a series of events, and story alone will meander and feel lost at times. It won't be confident. It'll sort of be like people having these moments. To make a complete narrative, there needs to be direction and an emotional truth to how the characters both experience things and react to them. The reaction is the choices and stuff. At the end of the day, or the beginning, readers need to feel something, anything, to connect with the characters. And even if you're plot driven, things can't just happen. No one is interested in something they can't feel, see, or experience. Oh, sure, 6 characters break into a bank, hold it up, and have big guns. The cops show up, lights and sirens blasting. So far, that's spectacle. And spectacle can't last long before audiences are like, hey, I need something deeper. And this is why even blockbuster films that are popcorn flicks like Transformers has the love interest plotline. Sure, transforming robots from outer space fighting one another is awesome, awesome to watch, but without the emotional depth, the audience will get plot fatigue. Too many things unfolding and not enough pause for contemplation, not much emotional truth, nothing to latch on. We don't connect to the boulder running down the wall to kill Indiana Jones. Spoiler alert. What we connect to is all that character development leading up to it. The no face, he's in the shadows, he's reading an old filtered map. He's not afraid of anyone. He slashes somebody with his whip. He's just a cool person, right? He's just really interesting. He doesn't even say anything right away. And he's like walking through and he's using his brain and he's intellectually making choices to figure out the traps. And then he gets to the end, and what does he do? He goes to grab the thing and switch it with the sandbag, and he's like, wait, and he like looks at it. He's making a choice, and he takes out some sand because he's like, but it's gold. There's no way he has enough sand. It's gold. Gold weighs a lot, right? But anyway, so he does it, and then he feels okay. He's like, yeah, it worked. And then it goes, and there's a consequence, and now he has to run. But now we're invested because we can feel what he's going through. And he made us feel something because we're interested in what he's doing, his choices. And we're like, ah, and now we're like, ooh. So but imagine the movie started off with Indiana Jones running from the boulder. We really wouldn't be able to connect with that right away. It would just be spectacle. And let's say he was running away from the boulder. He jumped over a pit. He's avoiding arrows. He finally makes it out and doesn't get crushed by the boulder. But then he steps outside, and now there's soldiers, and now he has to fight the soldiers. And then he jumps on the tank, and then he's fighting the tank, and his hat is blowing off, and he has to get his hat, and he starts punching people, the Nazis, right? Like, none of that is interesting. It's just we can't connect to it, and it becomes overwhelming. But if you watch and study narrative, and movies are really good to take, even though we're writing books and novels, it's great to look at film and television and try to understand the narrative format, like to look at what is the plot of what's happening and how is it unfolding, and then to make what choices are characters making, what are the consequences to their choices, not the consequences to the plot, because plot rarely has consequences, like, because plot is just this happens and this happens, this happens, this happens, but the consequences are usually from the choices of characters. So it's easier to watch something unfold quickly, like a film or a television show, and try to connect the plot points we talk about, but also try to connect what kind of choices are they making, what were the consequences of choices, how did they evolve, and you could see it in real time, and it helps you start understanding the written word as well. That's when I'm trying to balance with my story: guns, babes, and swords. You had me at guns, babes, and swords. Doesn't matter what's in the book. I'm already interested. Guns, great. Babes, awesome. And swords. In fact, sword guns. All right. But spectacle versus substance. Sure, there's violence, but that's just the icing on the cake. The characters are the star. True. Now, what I did was an exaggeration. I am actually excited about guns, babes, and swords, but guns, babes, and swords get you in the door. But to keep them there, what you're writing is absolutely true. The characters have to become the stars. They have to pull them in. All right. The guns, babes, and swords by itself would be considered a quote unquote gimmick. But as soon as the characters have life, none of that even matters. No one cares that it's guns, babes, and swords. They're like, ooh, these characters. I visualize my story as a movie as I read. That's really, really cool. It's also a nice little feature as a writer. It's like you get to watch a movie that no one else would get to see first, because like as you're writing, you're the first one to gets to enjoy it. So that's always really nice. There are guns. There are gun. I'm assuming gun blades in my story. So yeah, already have it. You can't go wrong with a gun blade. That's all I'm saying. All right. So we're gonna share the screen. Boop. All right. Share the screen. We got to share the screen. Share the screen. All right. Plot. All right. So we said that Sarah. This is the plot. Sarah meets Chris. Now, I'm not gonna plot anything out per se. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to what you call it? Oop. Sorry, my screen's getting all weird. I am going to write what it looks like when it's just plot with no story. And then from there, I'm going to add the story so you can see in real time. I don't have any examples, so I'm going to have to work this out in real time. As always, that's what we do on this channel. We like to have fun. Again, if you have any questions or thoughts, or if you want to share your accomplishments, feel free to. Obviously, I'll be happy to enjoy that. You know what I'm saying? 1 second. All right. Ooh. Listen, everyone knows Chris is already stupid. I don't understand. No, Chris. Oh, I'm realizing why you said to say that. I won't say why you said to say that, but I'm connecting with you, bro. Took me a second. All right. Let's do this. Okay. So if it just cough. Okay, so here it is. Sarah meets Chris. Let's do it. This is what plot looks like, okay? Sarah entered the room, the deli, and and Chris caught her eye. The two talked about, I'm not going to do dialogue right now. The two talked about the food on the menu. Okay. Now, Sarah entered the deli and Chris caught, I should spell that right though, caught her eye. Okay. The two talked about the food on the menu. Okay. So, Chris and Sarah got their orders and left the deli. All right. So that's what like simple plot looks like when it's written out. It's just a bunch of statements of things happening. There's no immersion, there's no depth, no one's making choices. Maybe Sarah entered, but maybe the plot is that Sarah needs to enter the deli and Chris caught her eye. So those are things that have to happen. Now, the first thing I would do is turn these into 3 separate beats, obviously, right? And we have to build on Sarah entered. So now we're going to talk about, actually, I'll do this just so we have the different spots and we can reference what we did. Okay, here goes. So the reason I do this is right off the bat, we can expand on these moments. Okay. And Sarah entered the deli and Chris caught her eye. So right off the bat, we have to say to ourselves, as writers, we must make choices. All right. I'm just doing this for now. I'm separating. All right. The two talked about the food on the menu. Sarah got their orders and left. So these are all separate beats in my mind, right? So Sarah entered the deli. We have to say to ourselves, how does Sarah enter the deli, right? Sarah grabbed the handle of the door as her phone rang. Okay, her cell phone rang. Cell phone rang. Now, We haven't gotten to enter the deli yet. We are creating an intro scene. Sarah grabbed the handle of the door as her cell phone rang. So we can make a choice here. Sarah can answer the phone. She could look at the phone. She could ignore the phone. She could skip the call, right? These are all things she could do. But we have to remember, whatever happens, we have to respond to that. There's a cause and effect. And remember, logical narrative movement. We've mentioned the phone. So we have to acknowledge the phone. We could also, by the way, Sarah grabbed the handle of the door, right? It's this sticky, or how about her hands sticking to its overuse as her cell phone. Okay. All right. So now what did we do? We created a immersion. We created an element. We created, right? So Sarah grabbed the handle of the door, her hand sticking to its overuse, or sticking to its whatever. Her hand sticking to it. Maybe or we could do something like I do want to name it. Let me just Sarah grabbed the handle of the door. The cold winter chill. Metal stuck to her skin. All right. So, or you could go Sarah grab the handle of the door as her cell phone rang. There we go. The cold winter chill of the metal stuck, or I should say sticking to her hand. Okay. So, a couple things we just did. We just made a stronger sentence from Sarah entered the deli to Sarah grabbed the handle of the door as her cell phone rang. The cold winter chill of the metal, all right, sticking to her hand, all right? So we know what time it is. We know it's the winter time. We know it's cold outside. So we are creating immersion. We allowed the sentence to have a little bit more strength to it. So now we are developing the story. And there's a couple of things we can make choices on. We definitely have to respond to one of them. Most likely, we could do the cell phone. However, we now have the option to respond to the cold. So in this case, we can make a choice for her. Right? She pulled up her coat, closing it tight. Tight against the harsh breeze. Holding the door closed. All right. Her footing. What, baby? The kitty cat's here. Come on. All right. So now we're doing a couple things. So she pulled her coat. She pulled up her coat, closing it tight. So that's a choice. She's reacting to the winter now, right? The cold against the harsh breeze, holding the door closed. So now we're saying that there was a breeze, and like sometimes the door gets harder when there's a right. So, her footing fell flat against the mixture of ice and cement. All right. I spelled that wrong. Cement. No, I didn't. Oh, there we go. Cement. I got it right. Okay. All right. So what we're doing is now we're creating a cause and effect. Sarah grabbed the handle of the door as her cell phone rang. So we are going to go back to the cell phone. But what's happening is the cell phone creates a distraction. Well, that happens. The cold winter chill of the metal sticking to her hand. So, she pulled up her coat, and I should spell that correctly. Coat, closing it tight against the harsh breeze, holding the door closed. Now, obviously, this is the first draft, and there's a lot of syntax I got to fix it. But her footing now, because of the door being held tight, Her footing fell flat against the mixture of ice and cement. Right? You could even say working, using her full strength. Her footing fell flat against the mixture of ice and cement. The phone rang a fourth time. Sarah. All right, the phone rang again. I could even do this. Here's something you could do. Watch. You could create sort of like a stylized thing. You could Sarah grab the phone as the phone rang, chill the metal. Phone rang again. She pulled up her coat, closing it tight against the harsh breeze, holding the door closed. The phone picked at her nerves as she used her full strength, right, to force open the door. Then you could say her footing. You could even do this. Her footing fell flat against the mixture of ice and snow. All right. The phone rang. Cutting off before the finish of its fourth ring, its fourth tone. Whatever. Okay, so I made the choice that she didn't get to the phone, right? That's another choice we didn't even do. Maybe she couldn't get to the phone, right? And none of this is technically the plot. The plot is Sarah meets Chris. So before she even gets into the deli, because remember, it's just she enters the deli, catch eyes, and they're like, yo, right? So Sarah grabbed the handle of the door as her cell phone rang. The cold winter chill of the metal sticking to her skin. Right? The phone rang again. She pulled up her coat, closing it tight against the harsh breeze, holding the door closed. The phone picked at her nerves as she used her full strength to force open the door. Her footing fell flat against the mixture of ice and cement. The phone rang, cutting off before the finish of its fourth tone. Now, obviously, this is the first draft, but so the phone picked at her nerves means that she actually has, we get it. She has that sense of anxiousness when it comes to the phone. She has to answer her phone, but the phone rings as she grabs the door with the chill of the metal and the breeze. The phone rings again. She grabs her coat. She's like, oh, so it has to be so cold that she can't open the, she can't, she's like, I'm not going to get the phone right away. But then she tries to open the door. And because she's trying to open the door, she's using her full strength. There's a cause and effect. She almost slips because of the footing. Anyway, the phone rings, cutting off before the finish of its fourth tone. Boom. Right? Now, how does she respond to missing the call? And that becomes a choice. That's where we continue her story, where if it was just Sarah entered the deli and her eyes caught Chris, standing in the line, the two talked about the food menu. And after they got their orders, Chris and Sarah left the deli. Yeah, that is writing. That is technically something happening. Sarah entered the deli, her eyes catching sight of Chris standing in the line. So far, I didn't make a choice yet. There is no choice here. There's no immersion. There's the most that happened is that because she walked into the deli, Chris was there standing in the line, right? Her eyes catching sight of Chris. Talked about the menu, the food on the menu. Well, waiting for their orders. Yeah, Chris and Sarah got there. I could just write. They left once their orders We're in hand. We're in hand. Anyway, so that's an example of writing something that's just straightforward. And by the way, I'm not saying anything is wrong with this. This is a choice as a writer. Like, you can do this, right? But when you're done with your first or even second draft, your job really is to go back through and try to figure out how you can enhance the scene, right? I know a lot of writers fall into the I'm undercount. I need 70,000 words or 80,000 words, and I'm only at 60,000. Well, you could expand moments. As long as it follows the logical narrative movement, it's not going to affect your pace too much, because logical narrative movement flows through beats, right? So it becomes a fast read, which has fast read, slow read. That has nothing to do with pacing. Pacing, again, is the speed at which information is presented to the reader, right? But minus that. This is very straightforward. This is what plot would look like on the page. Sarah entered the deli, her eyes catching sight of Chris standing in line. They talked about the food on the menu while waiting for their orders. And sometimes you'll see this after 15 minutes of waiting. They left once their orders were in hand. Like, I have seen that, right? That is what about too much exposition? When can you tell it's too much, or how? That's a really great question. So too much exposition. Okay. The way to break it up is I'll do an aside over here. Boop, boop. Sarah entered the deli. Favorite father had met here years ago, and it was their go-to place after softball games. The food had remained tasty and home-cooked place of warmth, even when this damn winter had become too hard on the skin. It had reached 2 o'clock. Reached 2 o'clock. I don't know if you noticed, but it's already too much. It had reached 2 o'clock, an hour beyond her lunch break. Her stomach had yelled her far too much to ignore. And with her Crohn's disease, she had to make sure she ate. All right, I think I spelled that wrong. I think it's just Crohn's. All right. Okay. So let's talk about this. Okay. Your question, just for anyone who's jumping on, what about too much exposition? How can you tell? And she hasn't even got her hand stuck on the door yet. Correct. All right. So Sarah entered the deli, her favorite since she was a child. Her mother and father had met here years ago, and it was their go-to place after softball games. The food. Oh wait, her mother met here, and it was Sarah and her parents' go-to place after softball games. The food had remained tasty. Oh wait, we're gonna. I really appreciate how quickly you can come up with these examples. Well, thank you. Yeah. I don't know what to say. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just I have to write them, right? I have to get them out. I have to make it happen. Oh dear, Crohn's. It's like being back at work. You get it. Crohn's is a mother humper. All right. So anyway, the food had remained tasty and home cooked, a place of warmth, even when this damn Damn winter had become too hard on the skin. It had reached 2 o'clock, an hour beyond her lunch break, but her stomach had yelled at her far too much to ignore. And with her Crohn's disease, she had. Okay, so let's talk about it. She entered the deli. This is plot. Okay, we'll do plot that way. Her favorite since she was a child, and then we'll do exposition in purple. Do this deep purple. Is that good? I don't know if you could see that. Let me make it lighter. I mean, that's too close to what we're doing. Let's do red. Let's just do. That's too close. Son of a bitch. All right. There you go. All right. So Sarah. So this will be plot. So Sarah entered the deli, and now this is exposition. Her favorite since she was a child. Her mother and father had met years ago, and it was Sarah and her parents. Okay. So none of this has to do with anything. This is all exposition. The food had remained tasty and home cooked, a place of warmth. Even when this damn winter is too harsh in the sun. That is exposition. Now, go to place. I think it's because it's this. It's go to place. All right. Home cooked meal. Okay. It had reached 2 o'clock, an hour before her lunch break. This is also exposition. This is exposition. All right. But her stomach had yelled at her for far too long for her to ignore it, and with a Crohn's disease. Okay. Rule of thumb. Bro, this is for you. Rule of thumb, and anyone who's listening. If you could read through it, a passage, if a passage is exposition like this, you have answered your own question. It is far too much. All right. But there is a secret to this. There is a way to fix this very quickly, by the way. But we'll get to that. Okay. So this is the plot, which is fine. You need plot. There is zero story happening. It's because the rest of it is just exposition. A paragraph or pro should not have that much exposition. It's far too much. This would be a pacing issue. This is too much information coming at the reader. Remember, pace is the speed at which information is presented to the reader. If we look at it, every element of exposition is new information. Her favorite since she was a child, information. Her mother and father, the games they went. Oh, her mother and father met years ago here, information. It was their go-to place of information. The food had remained tasty. Information. A place of warmth. More information. It's just information. So it slows down the pace because the human brain, the audience, has to sit there and go, "What am I reading? This is information. All right, I have to remember this." So that is. What about too much exposition? I'm answering. When can you tell it's too much? Like that. The passage is like that. Dude, I'm laughing because I've done exactly that way too many times. Look, it's okay. Like, again, I'm not judging. It's not, don't take it like, oh, you're a terrible writer if you do it. But it slows down the pace, and there are ways to sort of adjust. And we're always learning as writers. We're always getting better. But I'm sure the question on everyone's mind is, how do you fix this? You would take all the information in this passage, okay? And maybe, you'd have a separate file, okay? And you'd do this. This is exactly what I do when I find, by the way, I do this. My first draft, I'll end up writing just a chunk of that. And I'll be like, whoa. All right. Okay. Okay. So once I've written this book, then the work corrects. The real work begins once you're done with your first, maybe I would even argue your second draft, the real work, because that's when you're going to do all the adding of the emotional truths, maybe start adding choices, reactions, stuff like that. Not taking it harsh. It's a learning opportunity. So thank you very much. Good. Yeah. Please, for anyone out there, whenever I point out certain things, it is not a judgment on people. We're always learning. I used to do this all the time. The fancy stuff. Yeah, that's right. The fancy stuff. So to get to the point, how do I take all this exposition, which if we look at it is 8 pieces of exposition. All right. It means I can take even the example upstairs. All right, it's 2:00, right? Okay, she grabbed the handle arm. Running 2 hours. There you go. There we go. This is one piece of exposition. Boop. Running 2 hours late on our right now. This is something that's really interesting for what we're doing. That is not story. Running 2 hours late on her lunch break is not story. It's not necessarily plot either, because the plot is she has to meet Chris, right? You wouldn't write this on an outline. You wouldn't be like, she's running late. Right? But we can take this beat and now we can do this. Sarah, on her head, looking at her watch. 2 hours. Since her lunch. She held her stomach. Let's growl. Yelling. Hurry up. All right. So I actually added 2 beats now. All right. We have the phone rang, cutting off, so we're creating that, and so now we're even adding a little bit more emotional relevance to the scene, because not only do we know why she grabbed the handle, why she ignored the phone, why she's trying to pull the coat up and just trying to get in the building, the deli, all this stuff, and she's slipping because she's not focused. She's just trying to get into the deli, and then the phone cut off, and she's like, ugh. And then she looks at her watch. It's 2 hours have passed since her lunch break. She held her stomach. It's growling. It's growl, yelling at her to hurry up. Now, we don't have to explain that she has Crohn's yet. We can save that for another scene or another beat. But I was able to get the cold winter chill of metal sticking to her hand. So we have the winter, right? Because what is it? Winter. Okay. All right, we got the winter in there. We got the lunch hour. We got the lunch hour. Okay. Yes, it's seated. Correct, Flowers. Seated. That is absolutely correct. And if these things are super important to me story-wise, or for me to feel like the narrative is full, I would just slowly and surely make sure that I fit these things in, Grows flowers. You could even create see this, her favorite since, right? Well, her and Chris are talking. Because they're talking about the menu, right? Sarah could be like, and this is just me plotting it out now, but Sarah mentions how her favorite item since she was a child. Okay. Meatball sub sandwich for non-New Yorkers. Meatball sub. Oh yeah. What is Sarah's favorite item on the menu since she was a child? And now that's technically going to be seated in the dialogue. So I got 3 or 4 pieces in there. But I know that was a long-winded example, and I hope it really helped. But ultimately, if your passages are filled with exposition and plot, and there's no story within the passage, it will slow down your pace, and it will not For instance, there's really the logical narrative movement. Her mother and father had met here years ago, and it was Sarah and her parents' go-to place after softballs. There's no logical narrative movement there. And that's that's what exposition does. It just doesn't do it, right? The food had remained tasty and home cooked. a place of warmth, even when this damn winter had become too cold. It's informing. We're learning things, but at the same time, it's not moving the narrative forward. So it's not logical narrative movement. It's just information. Anyway, to summarize what I've been going over here, we took Sarah into the deli, her eyes catching sight of Chris standing in the line. They talked about the food on the menu while waiting for their orders. That's very quick. It's right to the point. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with writing something as, and I'm going to use the word simple or simplified as this, but I'm not saying it's simple. I'm not devaluing it. But this is absolutely okay. Like if you're just trying to get through the page or the moment, this is technically fine, right? Obviously, you would write it in your voice, however that would feel. But we are missing the story part of it. This just becomes plot. And this is what plot looks like when it's written. So it's definitely not simple. It's all complicated technically. It's words. But my point is, I am sure you've read successful books where even this, after 15 minutes of waiting, or like time had passed and they left once their orders came in. This might even look like that in a passage in a successful book. But there is nothing wrong with this. But when you get to the second draft, or even your first draft, your third draft, it's good to go back and be like, all right, do I want to see this play out? Do I want to see Sarah Gray? Because we learned a lot about Sarah as a character from this. This tells us about Sarah, right? Especially if I sit here and try to think about what is going on. But ultimately, we know she's in a rush. Wow, she's working a job and she's running past her time for lunch. Okay. We learned about the environment. It's cold out. Okay, great. Her phone is ringing. So, and she's disappointed when she misses the phone call. So all these things add to character development, right? None of this develops the character. We don't get any world building. And it does have plot. It does have plot. Sarah entered the deli, her eyes catching sight of Chris standing in line. Like the plot is moving. There are things happening. But this is where I would say, if I was developmental editing something, if I saw only this, like throughout a whole chapter, I'd be like, stuff is happening, but nothing is happening. Maybe we could explore some moments. How do you expand something? Like even this, they talked about the food on the menu while waiting for their order. There's such a great opportunity to even just making this up, right? The exposition here, there's just a great opportunity of now seeding that this is her favorite deli. So even though she's late for lunch, right? Like, because like if we had this as the actual intro and now they're talking and we're learning that her favorite, wow, she's late and she chose this place. She chose this place because it's her favorite place. And now it adds even more character to her. So it's telling something greater than letting things pop out. I might use this example when I outline my story. It might help me. Feel free. Every all these examples I use on here, even tomorrow's narrative that I'm writing, like as long as you just credit the right mindset, I understand the senses being explored since it is written word. Well, yeah, the senses are important, but I'm also trying to emphasize the choices. Sarah not grabbing the phone and focused on getting out of the cold is a choice, right? The phone rang again. Her being cold and pulling up her coat is a choice, but there's a consequence. By doing that and closing it tight against her feet, the breeze itself is holding the door because she's only using one hand on her jacket and one hand on the door. So the phone picked at her nerves. So that is an emotional reaction. There's not a lot of textile information right now. The chill of the metal is immersive, but the phone picked at her nerves is an emotional reaction. Now we are internally processing the moment from her without telling the audience. Telling the audience would be like she was annoyed at, she was annoyed because the phone kept ringing and she couldn't get to it. That is telling. But the phone picked at her nerves as she used her full strength to open the door, right? And then there's a consequence to that. Yes. But I'm also explaining to you and everyone else and whoever else watches this thereafter the experience of the life. But ultimately, that is the power of when you're going through it and you think narrative is made of both plot and story. Plot is what needs to happen no matter what, and story is how it unfolds through the emotional experiences and choices of your character. And those choices should have consequences. And consequences can be good too, by the way. A consequence doesn't have to be negative, it can be good. But when you're looking through your writing, if you're reading a paragraph and the sentences all feel like it's just telling us a series of events and they're not necessarily like she didn't make a choice to look at Chris. But if I wrote she entered the deli, like let's say I did this, she entered the deli, right? Let's just get she entered the deli, all right, her eyes catching Chris catching sight of a man, because she doesn't know, standing in the line, right? She avoided his attractive glance, looking at the magazines. She got stood at the end of the line. All right. So now that's a choice. And she's having an emotional response to it. Sarah entered the deli, her eyes catching sight of a man standing in line. So this might come off as plot because she has to get into the deli and she has to meet Chris. But we don't know it's Chris yet because she doesn't know it's Chris, right? Now she's reacting to what I presented to her. I presented the plot and now she has to react to it. She avoided his attractive glance, which then is technically processing her internal without saying she finds this man attractive, because it is processing the experience. So that is the difference between showing and telling. Also, telling would be she entered the deli, her eyes she saw a man standing in line, and Sarah thought he was attractive. Like, that's telling. But now we're allowing the experience to move through an emotional moment, which she avoided his attractive glance. I feel like I spelled stuff wrong in here. Let me just double check that. No, I didn't. Good. All right. Looking at the magazines as she stood on the end of the line, right? So she's not actually interested in the magazine. This is how she avoided his right? She avoided his attractive glance. She is processing that he is attractive and looking at the magazines as she stood on the end of the line. Okay, so that's the importance of adding story, because you're learning so much about a character based on what they choose to do, what they choose not to do, how they respond to the quote unquote plot. All right. And it kind of builds on itself. And what originally turned to be 40 words, I turned it into 156 words. And you might say, but Thomas, that's a lot of words. It is. But is it worth the word budget, right? And that's where you as the writer have to decide. Do you want Sarah to enter the deli, her eyes catching Chris standing in the line? All right. Do you want it to be that quick? Do you want to just summarize it and get to the point? Or do you want to explore the moment? You're allowed to make those choices. You don't have to make every single moment these long, I shouldn't say long, but these more immersive moments, these more character-driven moments, these story-based moments. You can mix it up. In fact, you could have a long, again, I don't want to use the word long, sorry. You could have this story moment for the intro, right? And then you can have quick moments in between. You could be like, 3 more customers left the line after they received orders. Sarah checked who called, ignoring the followed text from her boss. Okay. So this is a quick moment. It's not too deep. It still has a little bit of story in it, right? And then she stepped closer to the counter. 2 more to go. This is just a quick version of it, right? Like, we're not talking, we're not going too deep into those moments. This is a quick, quote unquote, quick pace, because the information's quickly. She stepped to closer to town, 2 more to go. That is quick information, right? 3 more customers left the line after they received their orders. That is quick pacing, because it's simplified information. We know that 3 more customers have left and they received their orders, right? Then this slows the pace a little bit because Sarah checked who called, ignoring the followed text from her boss. Right? It is, I would say, it still has a quick pace to it, just because, but there are 2 forms of information there, so it's slightly more than it should be, right? But this is a quick moment. And all I'm just saying is, like, you don't have to overexpand like I did with this huge intro. You can still get to the point occasionally, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's also there is nothing wrong with this. I would just recommend not doing this the whole time. I would recommend breaking it up with story, breaking it up with choices, breaking it up with reactions and consequences and emotional truth. And for again, like, this attractive glance, like, this is important too. If you're not writing in first person, that's a whole other way to sort of approach things. But if you're writing in third person, all right, limited or omniscient, doesn't matter. This is how you would show processing in the brain. In first person, it would just go, "Oh, I avoided my eyes from his attractive glance." Like, it would be more, because we're inside our head, the character's head. So I avoided, I avoided his attractive glance, looking at the magazines as I stood on the end of the line. Like, it would automatically just feel more internal. But in third person, this is how you make it feel internal without it being internal thoughts. She avoided his attractive glance. Like, it's giving perspective to how she's experiencing. Her POV made me choose attractive glance, right? Because if it was any other character, it might be like, maybe they didn't avoid anything. They were just like, he stared at her, her necklace or whatever, or her long red hair. Her long red hair reminded him of the fire, of Mount Doom, whatever the case may be. But when you're writing in the POV of somebody, that's also something to keep in mind when you're writing the quote unquote story of it. How do they relate to the words you're choosing? That is, I think I've talked about that as an aside. As a writer, you have to almost take yourself out of the equation when choosing what, because writing pretty words, because, oh, this is a good word, oh, I like that word, right? It has to fit your character. Right now, I'm working on the epic fantasy series. I have the epic saga, whatever. And I have, in the first book, Death of a King, whatever, of the Maven Wars, there are 2 main POVs. There's Devious, and then there is Aaliyah. Aaliyah is a bard, and Devious is ultimately a warrior, right? He's not a bard. And he has his deep backstory, and so does she. So everything that made her who she is going to influence the way her narrative unfolds, just like with Devious. But Devious is more contemplative. Devious is curious. Devious, there's certain things about him that I may look at environment where he's noticing potential threat. But I do the same thing with Aaliyah, but she's noticing, because she's also a thief, she's noticing potential target. She's noticing potential ways to leave a room or escape. She is also paying attention to the musicality of her environment, right? And the word choices I use, even though it's third person limited, I have to adjust it to her, right? And that's something writers need to think about when they're creating prose, unless it's omniscient. If you're writing third person omniscient, the narrative is written through the voice of the God figure, right? So omniscient narrative is written from the God, which would come off. Sarah entered the deli, her eyes and she avoided his glance looking at the right. Okay. Sarah. Like omniscient would have like commentary. Saying, all right, you might say blush on her cheeks. I'm giving it away. Chris didn't blink twice, noticing her avoid his attractive glance. Okay. That would be adding an omniscient narrative voice, because there's like an aside, there's commentary, there's they know more than she doesn't know he's Chris, but the omniscient voice knows he's Chris. But when you're writing, you're allowed to give the narrative this consistent feel, because the omniscient voice is ultimately telling the story. I don't think it's used that often in contemporary work, because it's more of a storyteller voice. If you've ever read like a book from the 80s or 90s, I mean, Tolkien is a good example, but if you ever read like a book from the 80s and 90s, and it's like the fire and the fire whatever the fire raged from its the wood, setting light across the room, and its 5 companions relaxing after a long adventure, seeking respite in the inn of blah blah blah. Right? That is a storyteller omniscient voice, because it is sort of setting the mood. No one in that scene is saying that or thinking that or experiencing that. It's the around the the fire pit storyteller. It was a dark and stormy night. That's omniscient, because who's experiencing that? No one. There's no character. It's unless this the dark and stormy night clattered against his nerves, pushing on him as the sting of rain sharped against his skin, right? Like that would be third person limited. Anyway, all right. I did an hour. Okay, so let's do it. Let's give the floor to everybody. If you have questions about what I went over today, feel free to ask. If you have questions about your own stuff, again, I'm a developmental editor and a writing teacher, so it's basically getting free advice. While I'm waiting for everyone to kind of sort of get their thoughts in, I just want you to know I got my proof for my book. Boop! Look at that. I got the proof. This is the front of the book. I got the nice little back. I got my proof. Everything's looking good. I'm pretty excited about this. This is the first book of 5 in the self-help series that I have for artists, the creative people, so writers, actors, musicians. And it's basically everything that I've learned over the last 20-something years and what I used to teach and speak at colleges. I basically wrote it out in 5 books. All the books are done. I'm just formatting books 2 through 5. So, but I'm excited. Look at the cover. It came out pretty nice. Anyway, so that's happening. Tomorrow's my birthday, so I will still be doing the live at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be writing a book together, because that is the gift to myself, is being able to entertain everybody. Would you type a word you've invented, claimed with your own meaning in italics the first time you use it, then in regular font thereafter, or just let the reader work out the meaning? Include, meaning by how you include it. Congratulations. Thank you, Ro. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited for the book. To answer your question, I think what you're saying is like if you have a world terminology, basically, like if Steve the vampire held in his hand the bloop, bloop, like that. Is that what you're talking about? We will be here with pizza and cake. Pizza cake. Uh, excellent. Is this what you're talking about? Where like, would you type a word you've invented? So, excellent. All right. So if I was to do this, I'll leave your question up there. Would you type a word you've invented, claimed with your own meaning in italics? No. However, I would use it in the best context I could, as much as possible in the novel. And that would really be the best way to get it out, because it doesn't distract. It's not like it doesn't become an actual aside or slow down the movement of your story or the narrative in this sense. But if it, the other thing is you don't want this character. Could you dumb that down? You know, if someone says something, it's the bloop bloop of the blah 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 blah, and then a character's like, "Hey, can you dumb it down for the people who don't know?" And they're like, "Of course, I'll explain the magic to you. It's flip flop. You got to do the flip flop, blah, 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 blah," right? Like, I would avoid that. But yes, explain. Oh, what do you got? Happy birthday, another year older and wiser. Yeah, I'm 47 now. When I stand up, my bones sing "Happy Birthday" to me with the crickle crackles. Explain it well around it. Yeah. That's all you have to do is just explain the context of it. Like Dunk Ferrick in The Mandalorian. Oh, Dank Ferrick. I know The Mandalorian, but I'm not catching the reference. I apologize for that. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, the best way to bring terminology from your world into the narrative, fabulous, is always going to be through physical representation of it. For example, I'll use my book again for the epic fantasy. The Naradita is a tribe, basically. And they have characters called Yarber, right? So a Yarber, I don't explain what a Yarber is. I just make the character the thing that is a Yarber. And every beta reader that has read the book says by chapter 4, they understand what a Yarber is. But you also, it doesn't distract them. They're not like, what the hell is a Yarber? Because it's not narratively important. It's just a title. So when you were a newbie, did you wish you had a different voice? Not that you really wanted to change it, just when you read other people's work. Did you ever think, I wish I could write like that? So I'll answer this two ways. I'll start with my grandfather basically would talk, because our family was like musically inclined. That was our big thing. My grandfather used to teach music and stuff like that. And he says, learn the technical element of playing your instrument, whether it was the horn for him or the guitar. And he goes, avoid learning other people's music. Because if you learn other people's music, you will destroy your own musicality, your own style, right? He goes, but if you're going to learn other people's music, do it after you understand your instrument. So like when I learned Black Sabbath songs, I didn't learn Black Sabbath to learn guitar. I learned guitar first, and then I started understanding theory. And then once I understood those things, I started doing that with music. So when it came to books, I approached it the same way. There is writing that I really love that I don't like to read anymore. Pretty much anything from Dragonlance. I love every single Dragonlance book I've ever read. Right? Margaret Weiss is fantastic. Everybody who wrote like Dritz or Lord Soth, any of that stuff, great. But I read it now and I'm like, I can't even get, because the way I see words in my head, the way I've developed a voice, it's just so different than it's there's too much telling. There's too much whatever the case is. So to simplify that, I've never read anything and said I wanted to write like this. Um, because I was just always I approach creativity the same way I approach music. So even when I was an illustrator, I didn't really look at the comic books for inspiration. Like how does Todd McFarlane draw Spider-Man? Um, I do know people who traced comic books to learn, and then they developed their style from there, but they always looked like there was a clear connection between them and the Marvel look or whatever the case is. But I'll tell you what I do now though. I'll tell you this much. Uh I do have doubts about my writing because I'm an artist. And some because my writing doesn't look like a Brandon Sanderson or an R.R. Martin or a Roberts. It doesn't look like Tolkien. It doesn't look like Sarah. Whatever. It doesn't look like anyone else's writing in that sense. So I have that like, is this even good writing? Like that kind of like struggle. But that's something artists struggle with, and I have to tell myself it doesn't matter if it looks like theirs, and it's not about if it's the greatest or if it's good. It matters, does it make sense? Is it clear? And do I like it? Am I happy with the product? And there has to be a cutoff for ourselves too, where it's like, how much refinement can we do? It'll drive us nuts if we let it take us over. But I occasionally fall because I have chronic depression, so sometimes I fall into that where it's just like, my right, I don't. Maybe I should just do exposition dumps. They always tell me you can't use ing verbs, but there are ing verbs everywhere. Anyway, it's an in-world cuss or slang. Oh, dang fregget. Oh, that's funny actually. But yeah, all right, that is a good example. Use it repeatedly when shocked or stressed. Yeah, that would be a good example. Yes. Constant. And when my depression takes over, it's I sit there and I look at my writing. I just read it and read it and read it, and I like pull up someone else's writing, and I'll be like, I go, is this what is is mine good? What do I like about this? What do I like about this? The thing I like about my writing is, and this is what people tell me, so that is how I define it. But they say it's cinematic. It reads fast, even though it's some of my chapters are thick. They're 3,000 to 5,000 words, but I constantly, every beta reader says this is a quick read. They can visualize it very clearly. It's very cinematic. And the other thing they say is your dialogue combined with your character development is very confident. And I think the dialogue and the character comes from my screenwriting background. But at the same time, those are the things that I actually think about, so it's good that people are seeing those. Those are the things I cared about. I wrote it like in my head, like what would this look like on a screen? And then, at the same time, the dialogue is, who wrote this? What was he thinking? All the time. I don't have beta readers. That's okay. You can find beta readers simply by building an audience on the social of the media, going to libraries, or as some people call them, libraries, which goes great with yogurt. And then you could also join writing groups, among other things. Keep in mind colleges. If you're old enough to go to colleges, if you're young enough where you're still in high school, there are writing programs and writing groups. You could always do that as well. I meant to say that I don't have beta readers. Haluk, I get other people to how do I get other people to read my story? Basically what I just said, just build your audience, build your community on social media. On top of that, there's all the physical outlets I just basically said. Oh, I still haven't gotten around to looking for the writing group. I don't think they'd want to know me. Flowers. 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 They would love to know you. finals writing groups. And it's interesting. Where you live, I hear English is very good because it's England. England. Except I believe they say different variations of words. I have a full-time job, so I'm not sure if that would work, and I don't have social media content. You in England? Well, if you have a full-time job and you don't do social media, the best alternative is to ask people that are in your circle. So at work, you could be like, hey, you and I are friends at work. I have this thing. Would you like to read it? Your friends, family, things like that. You could ask people close to you. Every single one of my beta readers are either somebody I mentored or is in the industry from film and television, or just novelists and stuff like that, that I've developed relationships over the years. So, you have your close circles too. So it's good to find it. Even Brandon Sanderson and Stephen King, like everybody, you need to have critique partners. You need to have people you trust, and they can't just be random people. But only because there's alpha readers and there's beta readers, so alpha readers are going to give you more of the, probably like how I might look at it. They're going to give you foundational, the pacing, or the characters consistent and clear, is the plot making sense, you need a new scene, no scene, right? They give you a little bit more detailed foundational stuff. The beta readers are going to give you more of the experience of reading. They're going to give you, I like this chapter, I didn't like this chapter, this was confusing, this made sense, I got excited for this character, I love this thing, or like they're going to give you more of like how they enjoy it as a reader. I have this thing, would you like to read it? You make it sound like hey, I got this thing over here, and would you like to read it? Or would you like your bones broken? Teddy over here thinks you would like it. Yeah, okay, I'll read it. What is it? 3:30 almost? Not bad. Kicking some butt today. All right. What else? Anything else? Oh, the right mindset. Remember that exists. I think that's it. Oh, fun fact. So, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but wait, what we got? Do you like your kneecap? Do you like your kneecaps? Where are they? I was this is how deep my my outlines can get, because I write, like you've seen, if you see the Sundays, I write the zero drafts is where you're going to really see it, but sometimes the extended drafts are really detailed for me. And I was talking to my buddy the other day, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, my outline is at 77,000 words already. And he's like, what? But they're like, there's scenes and there's dialogue and there's, information and stuff. And he's just like, that's a full book. I was like, well, it is epic fantasy, so I expect it to be at least 200,000 words when I'm done with it. I don't recommend outlining like that deep, like how I'm doing it on Sunday. I'm being very responsible and casual, and but how I really, like, when I jump, I go all in. Plus, I'm only doing it once a week on Sundays for that book, the sci-fi book. So, I try to get through as much as I can, whereas when I'm working on my stuff every day, but anyway, all right. What is it? Did good. Any other questions? No questions? Oh, I forgot that I wrote this stuff. Look, position. A position is something all characters have, and they have a lot of them. Those positions can range from their favorite color to where their belief is on the creation of the world. Pacing, speed at which information is presented to the reader. And then I put this up there. Seeding. Seeding is the gradual distribution of information throughout the story in smaller, digestible bites. Foreshadowing, hints at future events or developments, creating anticipation. Hello. Oh, Adonis Media. Hi there. I'm a comedian, a comedy screenwriter, writing a few pilots and wondering about how theme factors into that genre. Ooh, that's a good question. There's a couple ways you could approach theme, by the way, in anything that you write. First being you just pick a theme. You go, I want to write about, close family or found family or, you know, whatever the case may be, healthy relationships. And then you sort of write around that theme. You write scenes and moments that sort of not only question those theme elements. So, like healthy relationships, you might want to have an opposition to those healthy relationships. But you also want to have the healthy relationships and everything in between. And that's how you would approach a theme in general, right? So that's the first way. The second way is as you're writing, you start discovering that your screenplay or if you're a novelist out there as well, people, you start discovering you have your themes in there. You be like, oh, I didn't realize it, but I have some trauma. I have trauma themes in there. So when it comes to comedy writing of, you have to make a choice. So if the first choice is you're like, I have things I want to write about, you can do that with comedy. And what's really nice about the comedy is you can play with the ideas you can joke about the ideas. So if it was about trauma, let's say it's it could be trauma that maybe you want to sort of talk about whatever, someone gets blown up and they lose their leg. So you can explore the trauma of having lost a leg and play with the humor of that. And the theme would be the trauma. So how do you embellish that? How do you question that? How do you challenge that? But how do you also elevate the positives? Because even in comedy, you want to show the light of something, right? But when you're done with your script, you should also look through it and start noting what other themes might be coming out. If you have brotherly love in there, if you have relationships, these become themes. They might be smaller themes, whatever the question is. But once you figure that out, you can then say to yourself, do I want to add and evolve these themes, kind of, lean into them a little bit more? Are there themes I didn't realize that I wanted to talk about, but if they're popping up in here, maybe it's something I want. And then you just, like I said, you always attack themes with challenges, elevation, opposition, and that will really help you, especially with comedy screenplays, because you have the freedom of making fun of it. But there's also, and by my humor, the stuff I can laugh at is endless. But there is like punching down humor, which I'm sure you're aware of. But for anyone who's listening, punching down humor is when it's basically really simple humor. Like if somebody's missing a leg and you're like, look at Stumpy over here, barely could walk around. Like that's punching down because it's just like a low hanging fruit. It's not necessarily funny, but yeah, I hope that answered your question. I hope that answered your question. So yeah, okay. So every Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do live videos. Every Saturday is going to be educational, except for the sprint. And then every Sunday is Write With Me, where I write in real time. I write concept to completion. We were working on a science fiction story. So that's I've been having a lot of fun with that. We're getting pretty far with it. So that's going to be there tomorrow. If you haven't done so already, please comment, like, and share the video, but also subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out. Oh, great. I'm glad that helped. And yeah, I'll definitely, if you have a YouTube channel, I'll definitely check that out and subscribe to you. Adonis, I think you've been here before. I think you've watched before. So yeah, also check out makearightlefthear.com. You could see where my books are coming out. You could see if I'm speaking, if I'm teaching obviously, I'm in the Midwest, so people who mostly, by the way, a lot of my viewership comes from England, believe it or not, and also India. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And Australia. Australia is big too. It ain't much, believe me, just some goofy videos I made in college. Hey, you made something, and making something is the hardest thing anyone could do. So be proud of even the worst stuff that you've ever done, because some people just dream about doing, and just being able to do it is magical. Magical. All right. With that said, I guess we're done. I guess we're gonna do goodbyes. Let's see. Media. All right, everybody. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. This was The Right Mindset. Thank you so much for everyone stopping by, asking questions, getting involved, and allowing me to teach you. And as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.